When it comes to trash talk, it is a natural part of a lot of basketball players' lives. And not even in just basketball. In any competitive environment, you're gonna have some sort of trash talking. It's just a part of the game. I even catch myself trash talking every once in a while. To everybody that clicked on this video, I'm sure that you can think of one moment where you just had to trash talk somebody. You just couldn't help yourself. Whether it's in real life or you just playing the video game, we've all been there. Even if you're one of the most humble people in the world, it happens to the best of us. But even though it's a very common thing that people do, it's really the downfall of a lot of players. It happens all the time, and throughout this video, I'm going to explain to y'all exactly what I mean by that. And I'll use some recent examples as well as some examples from back in the day. So let's get right into it. As a former athlete, I understand exactly where these players are coming from. Even though I never played great competition, it's still the same thing on every level. Just imagine that you were working on your game every day. I'm talking about just going hard, putting your blood, sweat, and tears in this. And when game day comes around, you are just dominating, putting up 30 points a game with triple doubles, all type of stuff. I don't care if you're the most humble person or not. It's almost impossible not to let your voice be heard. Whether you're talking that talk to the defenders, the crowd, or just making the mean face after you dunk. It's just hard to keep that in. But at the end of the day, it always comes back around. It might not be the same game, but sooner or later you're going to get embarrassed. I don't care if you're the best player in the world. Which leads me to my first example, LeBron James. Back in 2010, LeBron James had shocked the world when he announced that he was signing to the Miami Heat. It's one of the most historic moments in NBA history. The pressure was on because he was considered the star of the league, but he didn't have any rings. He was one of those. But now that he teamed up with Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade, it seemed like it was going to be an easy run to the championship. He was finally going to be able to win a ring. And it was an easy run for the most part. They made it all the way to the NBA Finals. It was a very competitive series and they ended up tying it up 2-2. And the Miami Heat had all the momentum against the Dallas Mavericks. But this is where things changed. For Game 4, it was made aware that Dirk Nowitzki was sick and that he had a fever. LeBron and the Heat took this as him making an excuse. So this is what they had to say about him.
I think I'm sick. Hey, this weather, man. Weather is crazy. It's hard to go from 85-degree weather and then go to 90.
You think of the video of Wade and LeBron coughing. Dwayne said that that was a real cough, by the way.
Well, I just thought it was a little childish, a little ignorant. You know, I've been in this league for 13 years. I never faked an injury or an illness before. But you know, that's just, it happened. It's over to me. It's not going to add anything extra to me. This is the NBA Finals. If you need an extra motivation, you have a problem.
After Dirk Nowitzki saw this clip of them making jokes, he immediately was back to being his regular self. And for Game 5, he put up 29 points and he won the game for them. And eventually led them to winning the NBA Finals. At the time, this threatened LeBron's legacy, and because he was the most hated basketball player in the world, he was now the laughingstock for all NBA fans. They just put LeBron James under so much pressure back then.
Does it bother you that so many people are happy to see you fail?
Absolutely not. Because at the end of the day, all the people that was rooting on me to fail, you know, at the end of the day, they got to wake up tomorrow and have the same life that they had before they woke up today. You know, they got the same personal problems that they had today. You know, and I'm going to continue to live the way I want to live and continue to do the things that I want to do with me and my family and be happy with that. So, you know, they can get a few days or a few months or whatever the case may be on being happy about not only myself, but the Miami Heat not accomplishing their goal. But, you know, they got to get back to the real world at some point.
Since I was just talking about LeBron, the next example that I'm going to be using is related to him. And that is the Giannis crown. Giannis always had potential to be a star in the league. He was just a very hard worker and he was tall, so that made things even better. But it wasn't until he had his body transformation that things started to change. He just put on so much muscle, and now there was just no one who could stop him from getting to the rim. He became so dominant on the floor, and it eventually led him to winning an MVP. He was slowly starting to become the face of the league. But in order for that to happen, you have to knock the king off the throne. So during the beginning of the season, the Bucks and the Lakers had faced off against each other, and Giannis caught fire. For a player that seems to struggle from the three-point line, he knocked down an impressive 5 three-pointers. And he finished the game with 34 points and 11 rebounds. He was just unstoppable. But he made one mistake like all the great players do. He got caught up in the moment. He celebrated by putting a crown on his head, meaning that he was the new king of the league. It was up for debate at that moment, but unfortunately the internet never forgets. When it came down to the playoffs, he didn't play up to his potential, and they ended up losing in the second round. And when he lost, Twitter was just letting the jokes fly as usual. And it's gotten to the point where people are calling him overrated. Moving on to my next example, we're going to be talking about Playoff P, better known as Paul George. First and foremost, I know that a lot of people have been giving Paul George a hard time after his playoff performance. He had a couple of games where he didn't live up to his hype. It happens to a lot of players in the NBA. Although it's almost impossible to know who is going to be a meme, but Paul George could have actually avoided the whole Playoff P to Pandemic P label. Let me explain. Paul George first made a name for himself back in the 2013 playoffs, where he faced off against LeBron in the Heat. And he was out there just cooking them boys. There was just nobody that could guard him, including LeBron James. Paul George and the Indiana Pacers had the momentum to win the biggest upset of the season. They went all the way to Game 7, and it was a very hard-fought game. But as always, the king saves the day. Paul George and the Pacers ended up losing the game, but it was obvious that he was the future of the league. But unfortunately for Paul George, something terrible happened to him that changed everything. It happened in 2014 when he was playing for Team USA. He was one of the best players on the court, and everything was going smooth. But it was one play where he was trying to get a chase down block on James Harden, and while doing that, he ended up breaking his leg in half. I'm not going to show it to y'all in this video because it's hard for me to watch, honestly. But if y'all want to see it, just type in Paul George injury. It's going to pop up for sure. But after this injury, people didn't know if he would come back to be his dominant self. I can't even imagine the amount of physical and mental work he had to put in just to get back to normal. But he did. He eventually came back to play at a high level. He was playing pretty good. But it was during one interview where he slipped up, and NBA fans would never forget.
Guarding down before the Georgia position?
Yeah, I'm used to it. I'm used to this. Y'all ain't met Playoff P yet, huh? I'm used to these matches.
Now, during that time, no one was really doubting his abilities. He was playing good throughout the whole season. But the most unexpected thing happened to him. Literally, no one saw this coming. He had got outplayed by Joe Ingles. Joe Ingles was giving him buckets and he was locking him up. He was really embarrassing him. And ever since then, the fans have been throwing the Playoff P jokes out there. At this point, I don't think they will ever forget. Unless he wins the championship, we'll see. Even though there's a million more examples out there that I could use, I think you guys get the point. Even if you're playing great at the moment, it's best to just keep your mouth shut, because even though everything is all good right now, there's gonna be a time where you're not performing your best. If y'all can think of any more examples, let me know down in the comment section. I'll most likely see it. But if I don't, just DM me on Instagram. It's less notifications on there, so I'll definitely see it. Peace.
He got a Shaq jumper. He can't shoot a free throw. He can't hit nothing.
What are you aiming at? What are you aiming at?
All my niggas ballin' like Curry. Your bitch mix that bitch like a McFlurry. And my cheeks icy, I'm looking furry. Your bitch, yeah, she purty.